After having their game on Saturday postponed, the New York Mets and St. Louis Cardinals played a day-night doubleheader on Sunday at Busch Stadium. The Mets came into the game 11 games over 500 at 22-11, while the Cardinals were 5 games under at 14-19. The Mets called up one of their top prospects in Blade Tidwell. Major League Baseball had him ranked as the Mets' 15th best prospect coming into the season. I did a video on Tidwell, a bit on his arsenal and what to expect. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. In short, he's a prospect, but not Major League ready yet. He's getting the start because the Mets have a need, not because he's earned the promotion per se. So we have Blade Tidwell going for the Mets in his Major League debut. He's going up against Eric Fetty, who's coming to this game with a record of 1-3 with a 4.68 ERA. As always, thank you for taking the time out of your day in advance to watch this video. If you want to support the channel, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. But enough of that. Let's get into Mets Cardinals, Game 1 of the doubleheader, and Game 2 of this 3-game series. Let's get into it. Francisco Lindor leading off the top of the first inning against Eric Fetty, and he falls behind 1 ball, 2 strikes. It was clear from the jump that the strike zone was going to be interesting in this game. After evening the count at 2 balls and 2 strikes, Fetty busts a 2-2 cutter up and in, and Lindor swings and misses to strike out for the first out. That brings up Juan Soto, and Juan Soto being Juan Soto works the count full before taking a cutter down and in, but flying out to Lars Nootbaar in right for the second out. Pete Alonso up, no one on, 2 outs. He falls behind, no balls, 2 strikes, but he takes a sweeper down and away into right field for a double, his 12th double of the season. That brings up Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo starting at DH in this game, and Nimmo takes a first pitch ball, and then he pulls a cutter on the inside corner into right field himself, gets a double of his own, his 5th double of the year that drives in Alonso and gives the Mets an early 1-0 lead. So Jesse Winker, who's getting the start in left field, draws a full count walk. That brings up Luis Torrens. So Torrens now has the runners on first and second, 2 outs, but he lines an 0-1 sweeper that's down in the zone to left field, and Brendan Donovan makes the play for the 3rd out. Blade Tidwell in his first Major League start, given a 1-0 lead, and he's facing Lars Nootbaar leading off the game for the Cardinals. And Tidwell gets Nootbaar to hit a 2-2 sweeper down in the zone, right to Jeff McNeil at second, who tosses over to Alonso, and that's the first out. The next batter up is Alec Burleson, and Tidwell falls behind him, 3 balls and 1 strike. He gets him to swing at a 95-mile-an-hour fastball on the outside corner, but Burleson pulls it into right field for a base hit. Now you have Brendan Donovan up, and Burleson takes second base during the at-bat on a pass ball on Torrens. So now Brendan Donovan up, 2 balls, no strikes. Burleson in scoring position at second, and Tidwell gets Donovan to pop up on a fastball at the top of the zone. He pops up to Luis Angel Acuna, who's playing third base in this game, and that's the 2nd out of the inning. That brings up Nolan Arenado, runner at second, 2 outs. He hits a slow chopper to third. Acuna charges in, gloves it, and fires over to Alonso to end the 1st inning. And that was very much a fantastic play by Acuna. He showed that he's able to play second or third. He looked like he was a natural third baseman in that play. And he gets the stellar defender Nolan Arenado out. Top of the 2nd inning, Jeff McNeil leading off, and he jumps on the first pitch he sees, a sinker at the bottom of the zone, and grounds it to Nolan Gorman at second, who tosses over to Wilson Contreras at first, and that's the 1st out. Luis Angel Acuna now up, and he reaches on an infield hit to Gorman at second base. That puts a runner on first, 1 out, for Jose Azocar, who's getting the start at center. He pops up an 0-1 sweeper into the triangle in right field. Contreras is going back at first, Nootbaar coming in from right, Gorman going back and over from second, and Gorman makes a sliding catch just narrowly avoiding Wilson Contreras. 2 outs, brings up Francisco Lindor. Acuna at first, and Lindor grounds a 1-1 sweeper right to Nolan Gorman, who's been busy so far. Tosses over to Contreras, and that retires the side. So Wilson Contreras leading off for the Cardinals, and he falls behind, no balls and 1 strikes. Then he gets a sweeper down and away that caught too much of the plate. Contreras takes it to deep right center field. Actually hits the top of the fence and bounces over for a home run. First Major League home run given up by Tidwell. Now we have a tie game at 1. That brings up Nolan Gorman. He works the count full and then draws a walk. But Tidwell's able to get the next batter, Pedro Pages, for his first Major League strikeout on a really good slider that broke off the plate to generate a swing and a miss. 1 out. Victor's got the second up, and the speedster drops a bunt down the third base line. Base hit. So the Cardinals have runners on first and second. 1 out. That brings up Jose Barrero. Tidwell in a little bit of trouble, but he buckles down, gets himself out of it. He throws a 1-1 backdoor slider to Jose Barrero, pops it up to McNeil at second out of the inning. Then he freezes Lars Nootbaar, getting a little bit extra on his four-seamer, hits the outer half of the plate, 98 miles an hour, freezes him, second strikeout of the inning, and that ends the second inning. Juan Soto leading off the bottom of the third inning, and he takes a 1-1 inside cutter the other way, lines it into left field, leadoff single. Pete Alonso up next. He jumps on the first pitch he sees, an inside sinker, lines it into left field for a double. That brings up second and third, no one out for Brandon Nimmo. Eric Fetty on the ropes a little bit. He works Brandon Nimmo down and away, trying to get him to the ground ball to the left side. But he does the Cardinals one even better. Nimmo taps a sweeper at the bottom of the zone, right back to Fetty, checks Soto at third, and throws over to Contreras at first for the first out. That brings up Jesse Winker. Winker lifts the first pitch into left field. It's scored a sacrifice fly. Soto tags and scores. The Mets now have a 2-1 lead. Alonso holds on second on that. Luis Torrens up, and Alonso's able to advance to third on a pass ball on Pages. Now Torrens walks on a 3-1 count. Runners are now in the corners. 2 outs. Brings up Jeff McNeil. But McNeil pops up in foul territory for Arenado, and that's the third out. Blade Tidwell facing Alec Burleson leading off the bottom of the third, and Burleson pops up to Alonso in foul territory, and that's the first out. Brendan Donovan up next, and Tidwell's having little issue with his control of his sweeper to lefties. He threw one to Burleson that was non-competitive, and his first pitch sweeper to Donovan is way off the plate. He does come back with a 1-0 fastball at the top of the zone. Donovan lines it into right field for a base hit. That brings up Nolan Arenado, and Tidwell gets ahead of him 0-2. And Arenado pulls a sweeper low and away into left field for a base hit, just out of Lindor's reach, moving Donovan to second. Good pitching, better hitting. Wilson Contreras, who's been red hot now, is up. Runners on first and second, 1 out. He reaches for a sweeper himself, down and away, out of the zone, and gets himself a little soft line drive just to the edge of the infield grass. McNeil was shaded over more towards second base, so it's kind of like an infield hit. McNeil gets to it. He holds the runner at third. Bases loaded. 1 out. Nolan Gorman up. And Gorman goes out to the first pitch. Hits a fly ball to Winker on left. Donovan's tagging. Winker throws. The ball is not cut off. Donovan slides headfirst into home. Ties his game at 2-2. Torrens catches Contreras between first and second. He throws to McNeil at second. Arenado then tries to sneak home, but McNeil sees him. He throws to Torrens, who appropriately runs him back, with Acuna coming down the third base line to close the gap. But Torrens is able to apply the tag without making a throw. That's the third out. So sac fly for Gorman. The game's tied at 2. The Mets get a break on some poor base running by Arenado, and that ends the third inning. Top of the fourth inning, tie game. Eric Fetty facing Luis and Acuna leading off, and Acuna works the count full and takes a close pitch for ball 4 to lead off with a walk. That brings up Jose Azocar. He works the count 1-2, but Fetty gets him to look at a sweeper right on the outside corner, so he strikes out for the first out in the top of the fourth. That brings up Francisco Lindor. During the at-bat, Acuna steals second base, his 8th stolen base of the year. Now he's in scoring position for Lindor. But Lindor strikes out, 90-mile-an-hour cutter away, second out. 2 outs, Juan Soto up. Juan Soto works the count full, but he strikes out looking as well. A sweeper this time down and in for the third out. I'm sure Juan has got the benefit of that call countless times, but with 2 strikes, I'd really like to see him swing at that pitch, especially with a runner in scoring position. Bottom of the fourth inning, and Mark Vientos comes in for Jesse Winker, who somehow injured his oblique on the throw home in the bottom of the third. Vientos takes over third, Acuna moves from third to second, and McNeil shifts from second over to left field. Now with that out of the way, this is the big inning for Tidwell coming up. In my previous video, I stated that the most we could realistically expect out of him in this start would be 4 good innings. Here we go, starting the bottom of the fourth inning. He started off good. He got catcher Pedro Pajes to pop out to Vientos at third, one away. Victor Scott the second up, and he hits a soft line drive to center. Azocar didn't really read well coming off the bat, and it drops in front of him for a base hit. Jose Barrero's up next, and he's been struggling, and he gets bailed out because Tidwell drills him with one up and in. So he got runners on first and second, one out. Not a good sign with the 8th and 9th place batters getting on. Turning over the lineup for the third time now. Lars Nootbaar up, and Tidwell's able to get Nootbaar to chase a changeup down and out of the zone. He flies out to McNeil on left. That's 2 outs. That brings up Alec Burleson, though. 2 outs. Tidwell 1 away from getting out of this and possibly turning it over to the bullpen, which at this point is surprisingly quiet. He walks Burleson on 4 straight pitches. That puts the bases loaded, brings up Brendan Donovan, and Donovan goes down and gets a fastball at the bottom of the zone. He was sitting waiting on it, hits a hard ground ball right up the middle, drives in 2 runs. Burleson advances to third. The Cardinals now have a 4-2 lead. Nolan Arenado's up next. He takes the count full. Tidwell walks him. The bases are loaded again. And that brings up the Cardinals' hottest hitter, Wilson Contreras, up. And he pretty much gets the same location as his last at-bat, a slider down and away, lines it into right field for a single. That drives home both Burleson and Donovan. A 2 RBI single for Contreras pushes the Cardinals' lead to 6-2. Mendoza finally goes to the bullpen at this point and brings on the lefty Genesis Cabrera to face Nolan Gorman. Runners are on the corners, 2 outs. Cabrera gets ahead of him immediately. No balls, 2 strikes. And then gets him to pop up on a curveball on the outer half of the plate to McNeil on left to finally retire the Cardinals. But the damage has already been done. Tidwell's knocked out of the game. The Cardinals score 4 runs, and they now have a 6-2 lead after 4. Fetty's still on the mound, the top of the 5th inning. He's been given a 6-2 lead, and he gets Pete Alonso leading off to fly out on a slicing ball to right field that Lars Nootbaar catches up against the protective netting in foul territory for the first out. Now Brandon Nimmo's up. He jumps on the first pitch he sees, a sweeper on the outer half of the plate, and he pulls it to Nolan Gorman at second, who tosses over to Contreras for 2 quick outs. Mark Vientos up next, his first at bat since coming on for Jesse Winker. Vientos works the full count and then draws a walk. That brings up Luis Torrens with 2 outs, and Torrens goes after a sinker down and in, grounds it to Arenado at third, who fires across the diamond to Contreras for the 3rd out. Genesis Cabrera pitching in the bottom of the 5th inning now, and Pedro Pajes leads off with the Cardinals, and he hits a hard line drive but right to McNeil left for the 1st out. Victor Scott the second now up. He goes after the first pitch, a 97-mile-an-hour sinker, and grounds out to Luis Angel Acuna at second, who tosses over to Alonso at first, and that's the 2nd out. It brings up Jose Barrero, 2 outs, and he grounds a 2-1 sinker through the left side into left field for a base hit. But Cabrera is able to bounce back. He gets Lars Nootbaar to pop up on a first pitch outside fastball, right to Lindor at shortstop, and that ends the 5th inning. Jeff McNeil leading off the bottom of the 6th inning against Eric Fetty. Cardinals still leading 6-2. McNeil draws a full count walk, but in reality, the 2 strikes he had went after and fouled off were balls. So Fetty's kind of losing his control a little bit here. Runner at first, Luis Angel Acuna up. He works a full count as well, but he grounds a single up the middle. That puts runners on first and second, no one out. Cardinals immediately go to their bullpen. They bring in Kyle Leahy. And the first batter he's facing is Jose Azocar. And Azocar chases a 1-2 sweeper off the plate, hits one right back to the box. Leahy fields it, turns around, fires to Gorman at second. That forces out Acuna. So now the runners are on the corners. 1 out. Francisco Lindor up. Lindor, who's been expanding the zone of late, goes after a curveball off the plate outside, chops it a few steps from second. Jose Barrero fields it, steps on the bag, fires to first, but makes a bad throw. So Lindor is safe on the fielder's choice, advances to second on the throwing error. McNeil scores. Juan Soto up, full count again. He watches strike 3 on a slider at the bottom of the zone for the 3rd out. So the Mets get 1 on Lindor's fielder's choice. They cut the Cardinals' lead to 3 now at 6-3. Genesis Cabrera back on the mound looking to eat up some more outs after Tidwell was knocked out early, especially with the first 2 batters due up being lefties. He faces Alec Burleson leading off, He busts him up and in for sinker, and he gets him to hit one right back to the box. Cabrera fields it, fires to Alonso, one quick out. That brings up Brendan Donovan, who had a big 2-out hit earlier to give the Cardinals a 4-2 lead. Cabrera keeps the ball low, mixing in his off-speed pitches, and he gets Donovan to fly out on a 2-2 curveball to Soto and right for the second out. So 2 outs now. It brings up Nolan Arenado. Cabrera falls behind him, 2-0. Then he leaves a cutter over the middle of the plate. Arenado lines it into left field for a base hit. That brings up Wilson Contreras. And with him coming up, Mendoza decides to go to the bullpen. He brings on Huascar Brazaban. Brazaban on his first pitch goes up and in. Hits Cabrera to put runners on first and second with 2 outs. That's one way to not let him hurt you. Put him on base that way. That brings up Nolan Gorman, and he works the count full before Brazaban freezes him with a sinker at the top of the zone. Struck him out looking, and that ends the 6th inning. So Kyle Leahy's still on the mound for the Cardinals. Pete Alonso leading off for the Mets. Alonso swings at the first pitch he sees. A 95-mile-an-hour fastball up and in. Flies out to Lars Nootbaar and right. That's 1 out. Brandon Nimmo up. He works the count full. Draws himself a walk. So you got a runner on first for Mark Vientos. And Vientos pulls a sinker inside right to Burrow at short. Tosses to Gorman covering second. Forces out Nimmo. Fires over to Contreras at first. And that completes the 6-4-3 double play and retires the side. So Adam Warren is now on the mound for the Mets. He was recently called up, and he faces Pedro Pages leading off, the bottom of the 7th for the Cardinals. And Pedro Pages grounds a 1-1 sinker between first and second. Alonso ranges over to his right, makes a diving stop, and he makes a throw over to first base leading Warren. It's a little bit low, but Warren's able to grab it and still step on the bag. That completes the first out. It was a tremendous dive and stop. Almost got ruined by the throw, but Warren was athletic enough to make that play. That brings up Victor Scott II. He works the count 3 balls and 1 strike and draws himself a walk. I'm surprised we haven't seen him try to steal many bases in this series so far. He's been on base enough, too much for me. But now you have Jose Barrero up. Runner on first, no one out. Warren falls behind him, 2 balls, no strikes. Then he gets the count even at 2-2. Goes to a full count, but he strikes him out on a cutter up and in. That would have been ball 4, but he swung at it. So it's 2 outs now. Brings up Lars Nootbaar. And Warren gets ahead of Nootbaar quickly at no balls, 2 strikes. Then he gets him to fly out on a 95-mile-an-hour fastball on the outer corner, right to McNeil left, and that ends the 7th inning. So Phil Maton comes on in relief of Kyle Leahy to pitch the top of the 8th inning with Luis Torrens leading off for the Mets. The Cardinals still leading this game 6-3. Torrens gets ahead in the count, 3-1. He swings at what would be ball 4 up in the zone, but he draws a walk anyway in the 3-2 pitch down. So the Mets have a runner on first, no one out. For Jeff McNeil, McNeil falls behind 1 ball, 2 strikes, but he proceeds to foul off 5 pitches in a row before grounding a cutter right to Contreras at first, who tosses over to Barrero covering second to force out Torrens at second. McNeil is safe on the fielder's choice, so it's 1 out, runner at first. Luis Angel Acuna's up, and Acuna goes after the first pitch, a curveball just off the plate, but he takes it through the right side, base hit. First and second now, 1 out for the Mets. And Jose Azocar is called back. Tyrone Taylor pinch hits for him. And Taylor hits an 0-1 sinker through the left side for a base hit. McNeil has to hold at third. The bases are loaded. 1 out. Francisco Lindor up. I mean, who else would you want up in this situation? Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor. I mean, this is the way that is drawn up. So Lindor takes the first pitch ball up and away out of the zone. Maton tries again. This time he catches the outside corner for a strike. So it's 1 ball, 1 strike. And then he tries to come down and in on Lindor out of the zone. It's a ball, but Lindor goes down and gets it. He grounds a single up the middle. McNeil and Acuna both score. 2-run RBI single by Lindor. He pulls the Mets within 1 at 6-5. So they got runners on first and second. 1 out. Juan Soto works the count full. The Cardinals brought on Jojo Romero to face Soto. It's a full count. Soto walks, reloads the bases, brings up Pete Alonso. Alonso works the count full as well, but Jojo Romero gets a generous call from the home plate umpire. It's a slider that was just off the plate, caught for a strike, strike 3, big out, gets Alonso looking, big out for the Cardinals. 2 outs now. Bases are still loaded. You have Brandon Nimmo up, and he hits a routine fly ball to center field. That's the 3rd out. So the Mets add 2 runs. They get closer, but they can't get that big hit to tie the game or take the lead. Reed Garrett comes on to pitch the bottom of the 8th inning. Tyrone Taylor, who pinch hit for Jose Azocar, is now playing center field. Alec Burleson's leading off, and Garrett's all over the place control-wise. He goes to a full count, but really he's been bailed out by Burleson, who's swinging at pitches that were off the plate. He gets himself out that way as well. He flies out in what should have been ball 4. He flies out to Taylor in center field, and that's the 1st out. Garrett goes to a full count on the next batter as well, Brendan Donovan. This time, it's a little bit better control. The balls are around the plate. It's not non-competitive pitches like it was for Burleson. But Donovan walks. He lays off a splitter low out of the zone. So you got a runner on first. 1 out. Brings up Nolan Arenado. Garrett works him inside. Gets him to ground a 1-1 cutter. Right to Lindor at short. Tosses to Acuna at second. Forces out Donovan. Fires over to Alonso. But Arenado's safe. The Mets challenge, but the call on the field is upheld. So you have Arenado at first, 2 outs, Wilson Contreras up, but Garrett's able to strike him out on a cutter away off the plate, belt high, for the 3rd out. Top of the 9th inning, the Cardinals go to their closer, Ryan Helsley, to try and save this game out. Mason Wynn comes on for defense. He replaces Nolan Gorman. Wynn goes over to shortstop. Jose Barrero shifts from shortstop to second. Leading off for the Mets is Mark Vientos, and he greets Helsley with a line drive, base hit, first pitch he sees into center field. So the Mets have the leadoff batter on, tying run at first, no one out. Sterling Marte comes on a pinch run for Vientos. Luis Torrens up, he falls behind, no balls, 2 strikes, before swinging through a hanging slider right over the middle of the plate. Helsley really got away with one here. So 1 out, brings up Jeff McNeil. McNeil works the count, 2 balls, 2 strikes. But he lines one to Lars Newbar in right field, 2 outs. So the Mets are down to the last out, Luis Angel Acuna. But he pops up a slider in the outside corner to Jose Barrero at second. That ends the game. So the Cardinals win this one 6-5. The Mets' 9-game winning streak against St. Louis, including 5 this year, has been snapped. Game 1 of the doubleheader is in the books. Game 2 is scheduled for a couple hours later. Mets had some opportunities they let slip through their hands, and there were some key moments that I didn't agree with during this game. But let's get into it and the takeaways. The Mets' mayhem player this game is going to be Luis Angel Acuna. Acuna went 3 for 4 with a walk, stole his 8th base of the year. He started the game at third, made a couple of nice plays before shifting over to second to finish the game. He's freshly named the NL Rookie of the Month for the month of April. He has his average now up to 313. He's definitely making the most of this opportunity that he has to play. He's a valuable weapon to have at the bottom of the lineup, being able to get himself into scoring position for the top of the lineup. Blade Tidwell made his major league debut, but he was knocked out in the 4th inning. He showed some flashes of why the Mets are so high on him, but he's clearly not ready. I thought Mendoza left him in a bit too long, and it put the Mets in a hole that they found difficult to dig themselves out of, ultimately falling a run shy. I would have liked to see the bullpen up to start the 4th inning, just knowing that he wasn't going to go much further right now than he has in AAA against far inferior hitters than what he was facing in today's game. Hopefully, this opportunity serves as added fuel for him to continue to work and improve on his game, so that when he finally does get the call up to the major leagues based on merit, he's able to stay up here. Right now in AAA, he's pitching to the tune of a 5.00 ERA. He's averaging less than 5 innings per start. So I'm sure the Mets would love to see him get to the point where his ERA gets lower, his average innings per start goes up, and he's able to dominate the competition on that level. Aside from Acuna, Francisco Lindor is batting .250 over his last 7 games, but he went 1 for 5 and drove in 3 big runs for the Mets. His lone hit was the big 2-out hit in the 8th inning to pull the Mets within 1. He also drove in a run on a fielder's choice in the top of the 6th inning. Juan Soto went 1 for 4 with a walk and scored a run, but he struck out twice looking in key situations. Pete Alonso was 2 for 5, but he too was caught looking in a big situation. Bases loaded, 1 out. I don't think that was a strike, but maybe it was too close for Alonso to be taken in that situation. Genesis Cabrera doing his best in his audition to replace one of the lefty spots that are available in the bullpen, went 2 scoreless innings. Brazoban came on for a third of an inning, picked up the last out of the 6th, and then Adam Warren and Reed Garrett went a scoreless inning each to keep this game where it was, allowing the Mets the opportunity to come back. What I would have liked to see was Genesis Cabrera warming up in the 4th. In the event it went back to the top of the lineup, and then for him to come on and face Nootbaar and Burleson, especially after Barrero was hit. At the very least, once Burleson was walked, he should have been pulled. So the Mets lose a game that felt winnable. They left 12 on base. They hit 3 of 15 with runners in scoring position. Hard to win games when you do that. Jesse Winker's being sent to New York for an MRI, but it's expected that he's going to go on the IL with an oblique strain, just when he was starting to come around offensively. Not too much time for the Mets to hang their heads, with Game 2 of this doubleheader coming up. Catch the recap in the next video.